Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the CCA League here on a wonderful Saturday evening. I am DRF once again, joined by Mizuno. Mizuno, it's been a while since we've shared the mic together.
Yeah, I feel like it's been a hot minute. I think maybe we shared it since week 1, if that. Or at least a division reveal show. But I'm ready for this matchup, DRF, because this is a pretty high stakes situation, from my understanding.
It absolutely is. We are seeing a Division 5 matchup here between the High Rollers out of NYU taking on Ink Raiders Bravo from Middle Tennessee State University. And like you said, Mizuno, a lot is at stake here, as both of these teams are sitting right around playoff position. This is more or less a win or go home situation. Obviously, there's a little bit more complication to it than just that, because there's a possibility for tiebreakers, etc. But the winner of this matchup is looking at what is probably like a 90% chance of getting into the playoffs, because they would own the tiebreaker over their opponent should they both finish the season at 3-2. So a lot is at stake here for sure. The loser gonna have to really cross their fingers and hope that tiebreakers go their way.
No kidding. And I think the key matchup in this division here that we'll also keep an eye on will be the Ink Raiders Bravo matchup versus Townsend Tigerfish. This will, if they were to win tonight and still hold on to playoff contention, they will be fighting Townsend Tigerfish, who's currently undefeated in this group, for potential seeding. So there's a little bit of a little triangle here going on, and it'll be very interesting to see what will happen after this week too, as this will be a rescheduled match. But in terms of this matchup, you're right, DRF, winner go home for a potential seed into the Division 5 playoffs. And looking at these keys to victory, DRF, I want to point out Ink Raider Bravo's point about clear communication, as they were on the podcast this past week, and some of their players, AC Drift and Squid Daddy, also mentioned that communication is key to their team right now.
And I mean, it's key to a lot of different teams out there. And, you know, I'm sure for them, it's really no different, especially as one of the newer teams in the league. It's so important that you maintain a clear line of communication, just so that way you know what your teammates are doing, where the opposition is trying to navigate, because that's really going to make things a lot easier for you as you figure out exactly what your next step is. As we get geared up here for game number 1, we are diving on in to some haggle zones. Mizuno, let's look at these comps.
In these comps, we have the High Rollers in the bright, delicious yellow here, a Nautilus Zap combo here, supported by that Roller, which will be very exciting to watch that Bubbler on that zone. Meanwhile, the Ink Raiders Bravo rocking the Tetris Inzap T-Tag combo, so a lot of Slayer gun-on-gun action here, DRF.
Absolutely. As very quickly, we do see it is going to be the High Rollers that take the early advantage here, doing a great job so far, and it's the Ink Raiders who are in blue. We'll get those colors switched in just a second here, that are scrambling to try to get themselves back into this zone, and it's not looking good for them so far, as the High Rollers are just on a roll to get this one kicked off.
No kidding, DRF. And with the zone already down to 55, Tentacooler live, this is a very, very interesting situation here. And there goes another player down, 2 players down, as people are making jumps for the zone here. It looks like Ink Raiders Bravo are fighting desperately here to get whatever little chip they can onto the zone.
Absolutely. And it's continuing to just be the High Rollers that just continue to dominate this one, but the Ink Raiders finally get themselves together here, finally get their blue ink on the board, and now a nice Zuka shot as well, and this is gonna really start to open things up for them, but they need this pick here. Yes, they'll get it, but the Zuka gotta go ahead and counter, as Nebu gonna put a quick stop to this push. The Ink Raiders gonna stop right there at about 90 points. A little bit unfortunate for them, because it seemed like they were gonna finally get something going here, but it just was not gonna last long.
That was such a crucial 2v2 situation that the High Rollers were able to win out here. And here comes the Reef Slider fighting contention for the zone. It looks like AC Drift here looking to get a pick while they can, but they got caught off by a bomb. Bubbler pops up in zone to help protect the High Rollers and their paint there as they try to sniff out this one Ink Raiders Bravo player, and they just did not flush him out yet. This might be a potential flank here.
Yeah, a little bit of an interesting situation. I mean, Sergeant Kong just chilling in that little corner, waiting for a moment to pop out. Could possibly come up with a big play here. Might have to wait out this rain as well. Two of their teammates are going down. I think they might be popping out here just a little bit too late. They needed to do it sooner, so that way they had the backup. And now this is going to be a scramble for the Ink Raiders as they are desperately looking to get back to this zone, but the timer is ticking away. 13 points left on the penalty. This Ink Zuka is going to be their key to get back in one last time. Able to pick off one, but being chased down by the roller. Able to pick off the second. They need to go now, but they lose the numbers, and it's going to be AC Drift on those Tetras that saves the day and buys the team a little bit more time.
Man, Ink Raiders Bravo was just able to get out of a really sticky situation with how staggered their respawns are and the lack of synergy from their specials. Luckily, this is a good opportunity here for them as they are 3 up versus 2 right now as they clutch the zone and look to move in with this really good Zuka, getting a very nice kill on blue right there. As the rain tries to contend the zone a little bit longer, but Ink Raiders Bravo just barely holding on here as a fight happens in that left alley area with Shumpei coming out on top with this roller and wisely jumping out of the situation.
Oh, that was a crucial battle there. It looked like both teams devoted a lot of resources to that fight, and it is, it's no surprise that the winner of that fight there, the High Rollers, end up putting themselves back into a really nice position here, looking to get out of the penalty and go for a knockout. One last-ditch effort from the Ink Raiders. The cooler gets popped, but they're a little bit slow to the zone. AC Drift going all the way around for a flank that there's just not enough time for, and the High Rollers will get away with game 1.
Man, that was a very clean game from the High Rollers, but Ink Raiders Bravo, they have the right ingredients to this piece of pie here, I feel, right? Like, you saw that really interesting flank from that Inzap player, and I can only think at that moment, why is it the Inzap with the cooler that's flanking? Why is it not, say, the Tetris player? I think just a little bit of repositioning changes here, and I think the Ink Raiders Bravo still have a lot of play and fight in this match.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it's what the Ink Raiders have been doing all season, is scrapping and fighting their way through these matches. They have played 3 Game 7s so far out of the 3 matches that they have played. So, for the Ink Raiders, they are used to the pressure at this stage. They dropped Game 7 in Week 1, and proceeded to win Game 7 in Week 3 and Week 4 respectively. So they've gotten a lot more comfortable being in these high-pressure situations. This time, pressure's just starting early on because of the stakes that are at play coming into this match.
Oh, I totally agree, and I think this also goes for the High Rollers as well. They haven't actually had a lot of really intense matches, just looking from their record. Besides getting swept by the Townsend Tigerfish in Week 1, they've had really strong victories here. So this might be kind of a momentum situation for the High Rollers that they'll kind of have to hold against Ink Raiders Bravo here. And with that first game clearly on lock here, the High Rollers all already locked in their weapon choices. They're ready to go. I'm assuming they're going to rock out with the same comp since it worked out so well that first match.
Yeah, it's very likely that they just go ahead and do that. At least from what I could tell, it seems like they do work with a relatively limited weapon pool in the first place. So not too many surprises I anticipate coming out of the High Rollers, whereas on the flip side, the Ink Raiders, pretty much everybody's running 3-4 different weapons from the looks of it. So let's take a look at what these teams are going to bring out here into game number 2. Looks like we might have not too many adjustments, but we are going to see the vanilla roller mirror match this time.
And AC Drift also switching up from that Tetris to that 52 Gal. And we see the High Roller sticking to what they know, sticking to a really clean synergy with the Cooler, Zuka combo, and the Bubbler, which will really pay off dividends in this TC matchup here. You see Shanpei on this left side here trying to bait out a kill, but Lumi and Kong wisely were able to sniff it out. And this is a very interesting situation, DRF, with 3 down on the High Rollers here as the tower is slowly making its first track.
Yeah, and the bubble coming out a little bit late from Sergeant Kong. Fortunately for them, able to survive just long enough, buying them quite a bit of time on this tower. Gonna progress all the way to the second checkpoint, actually. A great move here. And the Roller trying to find a couple of quick picks. They're not going to be able to get them. And it's instead Shanpei who's been rocking this Roller all set long. I mean, we just started, but still gonna get the quad. A beautiful play there to get the Ink Raiders staggered.
Man, that was some great roller maneuvering there from Shanpei there, and it's a good opening to bring that tower back into the High Rollers' favor here. Here comes the whale popping out as Blue and Shanpei try to do this 2v2 situation versus AC Drift and Lumi. Make that a 3v2 situation now, but somehow Shanpei still comes on top! What is this, DRF?
Oh my goodness, and Shanpei now gonna get on this tower as well. They used the bubble early though, so they're gonna have to kind of, really scrap to get this tower moving forward. They're doing a great job of it though, getting a nice 2 down here on the Ink Raiders. They should be in a spot to get this lead now. They just need to play with a little, with life as their #1 priority, able to pick off another 2 players here. Lumi coming up with a double of their own. Make this one, no, not a triple. Thought they had that there for a second, but the High Rollers continue to roll on through this base, riding this tower all the way to 28 points remaining. Kong trying to take down this NZAP, but gonna lose that fight right on top of the tower, and it's just blow for blow at this stage as this tower progresses all the way to 25 points remaining. The High Rollers in a huge advantageous position halfway through the game.
That is a crucial push for the High Rollers to have on the board here, DRF. I mean, with how back and forth this matchup already started in the first minute and a half of this matchup, I would be fairly comfortable with this. But that's not to say this is completely over yet. Here comes the Whale and the Inkjet combo from the Ink Raiders, but there's a 3-down situation as the High Rollers are able to wisely back up and give them a little bit of room to work with. And here they come again. The High Rollers already storming into Ink Raider Bravo's spinner area.
And notice that the little bit of hesitation there from Shump as they had the Cooler active, so they could not be as sneaky as they initially wanted to. That's the slight trade-off you're going to have here with this Roller Cooler composition. You're not going to be able to play as sneaky, but hey, they've made the adjustments so far as we now see this tower progress all the way to 18 points remaining. Numbers advantage not in their favor, but with nobody from the Ink Raiders contesting this tower, they're going to get a free another 10 points there. 6 points remain for the High Rollers, and they are sitting pretty with a minute and a half left to play. The aggression still at an all-time high here in this game. Just sharking, waiting around this tower as well. But no, it's going to get punished. The numbers sit slightly in favor of the Ink Raiders at this stage. It's going to take quite a lot, though, for the Ink Raiders to get back this lead in the final minute.
Ink Raiders Bravo doing a great job of flushing out of their opponents and being thorough when trying to get back into mid. Otherwise, they could be potentially caught out in a situation where the High Rollers can get a couple of quick picks out of this neutral situation. Nonetheless, this effort of a push here is going to fall apart for Ink Raiders Bravo after that Whale and that Inkjet combo not providing any fruit here. And we're already with a few more seconds left. Here comes the High Rollers, already barely back into the spinner area yet again as the aggression seems to continue.
Absolutely, but take a look at this. It's AC Drip that was trying to run away with that tower. Nautilus going to shut that one down real quick. 20 seconds to go, and look at this aggression from the High Rollers. They're not going to leave the plat of the Ink Raiders until that timer ticks down to 0. Trying to make it as difficult as possible to break through and get to that tower. Kong going to make one last-ditch effort towards the tower, but it won't be any good. The High Rollers will ride this one out and secure their second game.
Man, dear F, that aggression from the high rollers was scary. When you have Shanpei and Blue on that inside roller combo, just creating multiple pinching opportunities, I mean, it was very difficult for Ink Raiders Bravo to kind of break that out. They just couldn't put on the right pressure, and when one would go down, the other would be able to pick it right back up. And here's a great replay here, actually, of that moment exactly. You see Shanpei and Blue together right here, already kind of working with each other however they can. Shanpei coming back to help Blue and put on a pinching situation right on this spinner. And that was a great stalling opportunity that Ink Raiders, the high rollers are able to do in this situation.
Yeah, certainly. They executed that so well. I mean, the Ink Raiders early on in that game did give them a bit of a run for their money as they got the wipeout and were able to capitalize on it so well. It seemed like that it was going to pay off for them for a little bit of time, but like you said, the high rollers just maintained so much aggression, were so consistent with it that it was just going to be insanely difficult for any sort of defense to get settled down, especially with how fast they were moving. I mean, especially with the way that Shanpei was playing there, it was a lose-lose situation. If they had the cooler up, they were moving a lot faster. They were being, very smart with their movement. And that's just so difficult to play against. But then when they didn't have the cooler, well, now you have to deal with this ninja squid. You don't know where this roller's at, so you have to call them out. So like it just seemed like it was a consistent uphill battle from the beginning for the Ink Raiders. But hey, they did a great job there of capitalizing on the opportunities they did have. Now the focus coming into game 3 should be on finding more of those opportunities.
You're so right to call out how Shanpei has to maneuver with the roller with balancing Ninja Squid and Cooler. And I think you're right to point out, DRF, I think the key here to win this uphill battle that Ink Raiders is currently facing is to shut down that roller however they can, consistently taking 2v1s, calling them out, being constantly aware and proactive of where this roller is. And I think that'll be the key to victory here.
Well, let's see what they can do here as the Ink Raiders pivot off of that vanilla roller, switching to a bit more of an aggressive comp. AC Drift on the Junior now, hoping to give themselves a lot more paint, which I 100% agree with this call. The natural enemy of the roller is a lack of paint. So that's the strategy they're going to be going for here. Let's see if it pays off, as we do see the early Zuka from the Ink Raiders, but it's not going to be any good as they do go 3 down, and it will be a quick checkpoint for the high rollers. A little bit slow to get the additional pop here, but they will get it. Try and tack on as many points as possible. Going to be taking this one just a little slow, and now suddenly speed up right through the glass, I should say. And 23 points remaining in 45 seconds. A brilliant start from the high rollers. That's where their push will end for now. The Ink Raiders trying to find a way to resettle back into mid. They have a lot of time to work with, but letting go that many points at the start is a rough situation.
Right, but you see Ink Raiders Bravo doing the right things right now. I see someone in the back there calling out the roller as Shanpei seemed to kind of slip by their defenses there. I don't even know where they are right now, to be frank. But nonetheless here, even with the roller distracted, Ink Raiders Bravo wasn't able to get too far until just now, breaking that checkpoint with Drift kind of going in on their own without their teammate support here. Now it's just Crummy trying to fight off the Rainmaker barrier however they can. It looks like both of these teams are playing a little bit scrappy right now, having a lot of trouble trying to regroup and kind of fight as a unit.
Yeah, and we were pointing out AC Drift there. That was a brilliant play from them as well. Able to get the pick and just push that Rainmaker, because the rest of high rollers were all the way forward and mid. They were able to slip right through and force that checkpoint. That's going to make things a lot easier now. Everything is just points from now on in these next 3 minutes of the match. It's just going to be who can find the right picks at the right time. And that's going to really blow things up for whichever team is able to pull that off. And I anticipate that these scores will not stand. Somebody's going to get some more points on the board. Now the question is, will it be the Ink Raiders, and can it be enough points to get the lead, or will the High Rollers expand this lead and put it out of reach?
Right, exactly. And with the Ink Raiders, they just keep inching. I can tell they're inching, just waiting to get this push going, but it seems like something is just not going their way. Like, they end up dying with the cooler is very important. And finally, this Trizuka, they're not going their way, as Shumpei gets a very clean pick here. And AC Drift seems to pick up the Rainmaker, but they're in an awkward situation as they only have one teammate supporting them, and they go down as well. So Drift is just scattering around with the Rainmaker, and here comes the High Rollers. You see Blue and Shumpei working together again on this bridge area as they finally separate and look to put on some pressure.
Oh, a nice pinching opportunity here on that end zap. Ink Raiders will find a numbers advantage here, able to pick off a second as Rainmaker on an island. Sergeant Kong able to get the pick clean there, and now it's just Shumpei who's gonna get called out by that Rainmaker explosion. And now this is Ink Raiders trying to tack on some more points onto the board. A little bit slow on the uptake here, is going to slow down their push a little bit, but two huge picks come along. If they can find this third in the corner, that's gonna come up big. Yes, they will, but no lead. 7 points is separates them from the lead now. Able to get the pop. Will they be able to get a across the glass? Yes, they will. 1 point lead in favor of the Ink Raiders. 3 down, and this push is not quite over yet.
Oh my goodness, what a heart attack there. Great use from Cromie of that inkjet to make just a little bit of paint for them to slip on through glass and to provide enough of a distraction there. Very clutch plays from the Ink Rollers that push went totally right for them. And DRF, there's only 45 seconds now, and the Rainmaker is now in the High Rollers. And there's it's 2 there! My mistake there, folks. Oh my goodness, I thought this was a good opportunity for the High Rollers to put on some more pressure, but no, here comes Sergeant Kong getting 3 kills out of that situation and just completely ruining the High Rollers' plans.
Oh, but AC Drift gonna come up with a big pick there. It's going to be a trade. So this one is not over for the High Rollers quite yet. They have the numbers advantage to still work with. Cooler gonna be coming out from Blue. Oh! Barrier, and that would have just crushed all hope that the High Rollers had in this game. The trade with Shump and Blue trying to come in and pop this Rainmaker barrier as fast as possible. It's not gonna be in time. The bomb coming down from the heavens to save this game for the Ink Raiders.
That was the most crucial, most luckiest bomb possible for the Ink Raiders, because you saw the High Rollers, you saw Shumpei already just doing what they do best on those ledges. You saw the pressure that they have, and they were just staggered just enough. Oh, there's Shumpei right here on this replay by the podium, trying to provide support, rotating over. There's Blue and Shumpei together. I mean, DRF, this was it the cooler maybe?
It was Luby. It was a Luby with the splatter shot, tosses that suction bomb across the bridge and hits that barrier to take out a player there, and Shump was just a little bit too far forward. I know exactly what they were trying to do as well, because if they get the clean pick on AC Drift, possibly turn over to the ball point as well, that opened things up entirely for the High Rollers to get the lead back late in this game. But things just did not quite go their way there. The Ink Raiders did exactly what they needed to in that game to come out with the dub. And we can start to see, you know, the wheels are turning for the Ink Raiders. They're starting to figure out the keys to victory here. Obviously, we saw that at the start of the match, but those keys are quickly changing. And the Ink Raiders are doing a fantastic job of adapting to it, because they know that from what it seems, just at least on the exterior here, I think it's fair to say that the High Rollers mechanically are performing better. Now the Ink Raiders are finding ways to respond with their macro in finding of excellent 2v1 opportunities and just playing the mechanics of the game just a little bit better in their favor. I mean, like, for example, taking advantage of that bomb opportunity on the Rainmaker barrier. That was such a good position that they had there, and a great read as well. So it's going to be exactly that. They need to continue to maximize the macro here. And if they can continue to do that, they will be in a great position in this set because the high rollers are still winning these battles mechanically.
I love that tangent about the macro versus the micro, and that's going to be such keys to victory at the end of the day. You can rely on your mechanics all day long, but this is a team game at the end of the day, and you kind of have to know mechanically on a high level how this game operates in terms of positioning and action planning here, DRF. Great calls on that front. Now we're heading into a very team synergy focused match here with Clan Blitz here on Ship Shape, and this is a nasty map, DRF. This is a gross map. I'm gonna be so opinionated about this. I cannot stand this map.
Okay, well, I love Ship Shape. I hate it on Clan Blitz. It's just a pain in the butt. Like, I really don't understand how we have accepted Clan Blitz on Ship Shape, but we continue to shun Mincemeat, because this is just basically Mincemeat's little brother here. As we quickly do see the high rollers taking advantage of this numbers situation to be able to get their first score of the game. Now the question is, can they follow up? Because they have 17 clams to work with, but none of these clams are going in. It looks like they're gonna have to settle for just 2 clams here, although Blue doing a great job here, somehow just dancing their way through. No way, Blue got away with that.
They didn't. This is where the Ink Raiders Bravo mechanical wise, that's where you need to think about dropping the bombs, right? I mean, they have plenty on this roster. That's a torpedo, that's a splat bomb. They have plenty in their arsenal to sniff out whoever's left, because on those ledges, you have to sniff them out carefully, and that's such a close call there. But we see some good positioning here from the Ink Raiders Bravos. They're looking to fight back here. They're just not able to clutch it out. Here's 2 go down, though. It's just too close, and just not, the things are just going their way right now.
But the Zuka's out here not going to be able to find anything. Shumpei, we didn't even note that Shumpei switched over to the Rapid Blaster Pro deco, and that's a pretty big adjustment here, because they've been rocking that vanilla roller all set long, and now the adjustment to the blaster is a relatively drastic one. I mean, now the key for the high rollers is still going to be just paint as much as possible, because blaster and roller are this one and the same in that way, in that if they really rely on an abundance of paint to maneuver and succeed in getting their picks. But we'll have to continue to see how they kind of address this one, as it seems the high rollers continue to be in the driver's seat halfway through, continuing to find just consistent numbers advantages and getting the Ink Raiders staggered.
I was going to point out, dear, if there's so many fights, isolated fights happening on this map, and the high rollers keep winning them out because the Ink Raiders Bravo are taking those isolated fights all on their own there. So in terms of macro, the high rollers are executing a lot more cleanly than the Ink Raiders are at this moment. And this is a scary situation, as the high rollers have 2 balls now to work with in a 3-down situation. Lumi clutches that out, and that 2v1, I don't think the high rollers realized that Lumi was just right there. Lumi just came in clutch and saving them out of losing out of many points. And here comes Sergeant Kong looking to getting a little greedy there with the ball, and the spur of the moment move there, but is not fruitful in their efforts.
Yeah, a little bit antsy there. I can appreciate the hustle to try and slip on through. It wasn't a bad read, because as we saw, all of the high rollers were pushed on the other side of their base. So it just, with Shumpei on that blaster, the range is just big enough that was going to be a difficult push no matter what. But hey, I can commend the call out there. It was a ballsy play. If it worked, it would have notably shrinked this lead by probably about 10 points. I don't think they would have had any follow-up, but now with 1 minute to go, they're still in the same place here. So definitely kind of wishing that they had that pushback. Blue going to just sit there. Oh, no way! Blue gets away with yet another sneaky play.
Man, and it's just, AC Drift just walked right into that one, just not clearing it out and not being supported by their teammates there. You see AC Drift taking A 2v1 situation not becoming fruitful. Champagne using this inkjet to disperse Lumi, but Lumi getting a very clean pick there, able to get one. Crummy getting a second, picking up two right now, and this is their moment, DRF. I can tell they're getting ready to get on the move here.
But they need a power clam. They have 10 seconds to work with. Lumi needs to pick up these 2 clams here. They'll get the one. There's the second one. Now they have an opportunity to push. Do they get the basket open? Yes, they do. And if they can get the second power clam in, that'll be the game. Yes, they will. The Ink Raiders at the 11th hour. Coming up big once again to tie this set at 2 games apiece. When all hope seemed lost in that one, the High Rollers controlled this game for 4.5 minutes. And the Ink Raiders at the very last second come out on top.
Literally in the last 15 seconds of this match, the High Rollers let this one run away from them. I think they just did not play aggressively enough after that first push. They had all the right ingredients here, like I mentioned earlier. I love that metaphor so much, but the Ink Raiders just pulled it together in the last possible moment with AC Drift distracting with that Brave Slider, allowing Lumi the opportunity to get in, getting a pick there. I still can't believe they were able to get that. And then Sergeant Kong just being able to sneakily follow up with that ball. Man, dear, they ran away with that literally in the last 15 seconds. That's insane.
That is, I mean, Lumi, your team owes you some ice cream or something after this one because you were the MVP of that game from start to finish for the Ink Raiders, coming up with so many clutch picks. And I mean, all of that happened because Lumi had led that charge. Lumi, have yourself a game, pat yourself on the back. Because that was so clutch, you know, and I've honestly never really considered that you can actually score the power clam from that position that Lumi was in. I'm gonna have to put that one down in my notes. So hey, you're always learning something here. Thank you, Lumi, for that one.
No, that's such a good point. It was a different angle. And again, like I was saying, the Lumi was able to take advantage of the distraction that AC Drift was creating. And I think supported by Crummy and Sergeant Kong in the left side. I couldn't quite tell from the camera angle. But that distraction and that pull was perfect because like you pointed out, Lumi had the clams that they were able to get that pick. I believe it was against Nebu or Blue. They were able to get those clams that just dropped right in front of them. Honestly, if they didn't win that 1v1, I don't think they were going to be able to get the clams in. I mean, much had to happen. Right. There's so much had to happen in that match, DRF. And yeah, you're right. I mean, Lumi clutched out. I mean, bravo, my friend. Bravo.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Because if one little thing doesn't go their way there, the High Rollers win that game because they don't even get overtime. They needed that power clam at the last second, and they were fortunate enough to get it. So right place, right time, and sometimes that's just how this game goes. But hey, these teams are quickly readied up for game number 5. We are tied at 2 games apiece, heading into a decisive game 5 here on Manta Marie Splat Zones. And taking a look at these compositions, it seems like AC Drift going back onto the tried and true Tetras. But Blue switching over to that Octobrush, a bit of an adjustment there for the High Rollers.
And we see, oh my god, was that 2 from that Zuka there? Either way, Champagne now was just able to waltz right in to the Ink Raider Bravo's bunker area, and now the High Rollers have a great, strong control of not only both the zones, but the bunker. Lumi charges in with that hammer and is unable to get a pick because of that Nautilus being able to hold their ground. And DRF, this game is just running away right now.
Yeah, I mean, it's a very familiar start for both of these teams. The High Rollers have had excellent openings. Ink Raiders have definitely struggled in that department tonight. So definitely no surprises here. But the difference is with Splat Zone's Manta Maria, This is very lockout heavy. It's going to require some great coordination here in order to neutralize these zones. AC Drift going to use that Reef Slider to get into their zone and neutralize it. Now they're looking to flip the second zone. They do have the numbers to work with here. Have to wait out the Zuka. Now the NZAP has this cooler as well. They're going to need that in order to flip it. I don't think they will get it, and this zone will stay in favor of the High Rollers. There will be one more opportunity for the Ink Raiders to flip this zone, but there is not enough time to get those specials up. They're going to have to just dive this one.
Right, exactly. With the clock winding away and not enough members of the Raiders near the zone, it's going to completely run away with them. I have to take a moment to point out Champay in that moment because they might have not gotten any kills towards that latter half of that push, but they were in key pinching positions to help support their teammates quickly flesh out the members of Ink Raiders Bravo from taking over the left zone here. As you see, Champay was actually hiding in the Raiders street and came all the way around on their own zone to help finally pinch on this left zone. It was a very interesting play, honestly, and it really worked out in their favor because they were able to kind of prevent Ink Raiders Bravo from coming back onto the zone with multiple specials at hand.
Yeah, this kind of just seemed to be a series of miscommunications, misplays from the Ink Raiders. So again, the High Rollers mechanically just won every battle here. And because this is super lockout heavy, you don't want to stagger because that's exactly what happens. You get the clean 100-0. The Ink Raiders had a good opportunity there to neutralize the zones and possibly flip it. The NZAP needed to just throw down that cooler because, one, that gives you a little bit of protection. It gives you the various buffs as well. And even if they had gone down the way they did, their teammates would have been able to respawn in faster. They could have gotten one more clean look at it as opposed to having to scramble in the exact way that they did. So I do think that there was quite a few things the Ink Raiders could have cleaned up there. But hey, you got to just brush that one off now. You're headed over to Tower Control Sturgeon. This one will play a little bit more into your favor because I think that last game was kind of set up for the High Rollers from the beginning. So let's take a look here. High Rollers are up 3-2. This is match point in a high stakes matchup between these two teams. A playoff spot on the line. Zuno, a couple of adjustments here from these teams.
Good grief, dear Ref. An aerospray is on the field right now. I don't believe my eyes, but I see the gimmick that they're going for here, and that is Booyah City. Nonetheless, ignore my points here, folks, because out of nowhere, Ink Raiders Bravo was just able to completely clean the field and get a delayed wipeout situation here. But Champay already back on the action here, trying to distract the players of Ink Raiders Bravo from getting the push any further. And like I said, Booyah City. There's just way too much going on here, DRF.
Yeah, it's definitely very chaotic here, and it's just a scrappy fight. Lumi coming up with a couple of big picks there, somehow staying alive, able to get the second pick here as well, and everyone's just jumping in. I mean, I don't know if there's anything super coherent going on between these two teams until somebody gets wiped. Everyone's just going to continue to throw their bodies at each other. The Ink Raiders finally going to get slowed down here a little bit as Lumi pops that Reef Slider. Going to get the pick on Nebru as well. And it looks like everyone's going to try to collapse in on this tower. AC Drift, though, going to get punished. And now the lead flips in favor of the High Rollers. But man, this is still pure chaos.
Chaos is right, but we're finally starting to see the High Rollers edge out just a bit due to this paint advantage that they have. AC Drift here is hopping on that tower and is just surrounded in ink. And they were able to get out of that situation thanks to this Zipcaster here. But it looks like High Rollers got their jump sharks out and nothing fruitful was obtained here. It looks like at least it allowed some time for the members of Ink Raiders Bravo to get back in. You see Sergeant Kong there diving for the tower, I think in a desperate attempt there to slow it down just a bit. Lumi's playing a little bit more patiently on that S Blaster, popping the Reef Slider in an awkward spot there. Oh, I really feel that a lot, Lumi. I get it, but it looks like the High Rollers are just going to keep slightly edging that tower bit by bit as they win these fights.
Yeah, all the way down to 40 points remaining now. The Ink Raiders are going to have to collapse in here, able to get the Tower Rider down, and working with a slight numbers advantage. Atsuka comes up with a big pick to slow down this defensive effort from the Ink Raiders. You know, the Ink Raiders have come up with a couple of big plays here, but nothing has switched this momentum in their favor quite yet. You know, they had that great start, but the High Rollers have been in command these past 2 minutes. And oh no, another 2-down situation, possibly a third. No, that player's going to manage to get out of the way. The High Roll is going to continue to hold on to this tower. The Booyah Bomb coming out in a very aggressive position here, able to pick off Crummy on that ball point, and this should be a big push from the High Rollers as the Ink Raiders are now staggered.
Completely staggered, and those 3 specials I knew were just going to be complete tidal wave onto Ink Raiders Bravo here. And here they come again, just special after special. Not even 30 seconds have passed, and a Booyah combo was able to completely flesh out the members of Ink Raiders Bravo. They are fighting desperately here. Lumi getting a quick pick here, looking to get a second to flush them out. The tower is literally butter, everyone. Oh my goodness, this is a desperate fight for it at any point in cost. And Lumi is just putting in the absolute work to get High Rollers out of their base, and they just were able to barely successfully get them out. But at what cost, DRF? At what cost?
Yeah, they devoted so many resources there, but at that point, you just need to prevent the knockout, because you can't give yourself another opportunity if you get knocked out. So now things are looking grim for the Ink Raiders, but they are not out of this one yet. 40 seconds to play. The Inkjet coming out now, trying to continue to put down the defensive line. And no, the High Rollers look like they are in control here as they continue their march to this knockout. And it looks like they are just a couple points away. No, it's gonna get stopped at 1! Sergeant Kong trying to hold this one down, but no, they get shut down yet again. The tower reeling back towards mid. The High Rollers don't look like they're interested in knocking this one out anymore. They're just gonna try to hold their position, prevent anything from the Ink Raiders, and to try to run away with this playoff spot, and they will! It will be the High Rollers securing game number 6 and their spot in the Division 5 playoffs.
What a roller coaster, DRF. Wow, the High Rollers just exuded confidence and exuded dominance in that match. I can't even figure out a point except at the very beginning when they didn't have a sense of control in those scrappy fights. But wow, they played this last minute out so incredibly well, keeping their cool and understanding where that line is, right? Like you mentioned during these final few seconds here, they almost kind of bailed out on the opportunity to fully push the tower just to knock out. They were more interested in clearly holding that line and inching that tower forward when they feel it's safe to do so. What a game from the High Rollers.
Man, oh, you gotta feel it for the Ink Raiders, though. They put their hearts and souls into this game here, just consistently trying to get those defensive stops. I mean, the first 30 seconds was a different Ink Raiders team because they consistently throughout the set struggled in those openings, and this time we saw them very quickly punishing the high, you know, the big changes that we saw in the High Rolls, and most notably with that arrow spray. It took the High Rolls a little bit to get settled into this new composition, and Ink Raiders seemed like they were in a great spot to really command this game. But once the High Rollers got a little bit settled down more, they knew exactly what they needed to do to just outmaneuver their opponents here and come out with the victory. So I mean, it was such an exhilarating game. It was kind of just hard to commentate it at times, too, because there was just so much going on. Everyone was flying in and getting picks, and it was just a chain reaction. Oh, that was so much fun.
Right, exactly. I think Ink Raiders definitely thrives in the chaos and the scrappiness in a way. Like you mentioned, those first 30 seconds, it really unsettled the High Rollers. I could tell what I think the Ink Raiders were able to take on good isolated fights. I could tell there was a slight difference in their scrappy play in those first 30 seconds to a minute versus what we had seen earlier tonight. Nonetheless, Ink Raiders Bravo out of Middle Tennessee State take a bow on a great show tonight, a great performance on the CCA League matchup here. Man, it looks like the Division 5 is shaping up pretty nicely here, though. This was a scary matchup here for the High Rollers.
It was. I don't know what the expectations were for these teams coming in, but I think both teams got a little bit more than what they bargained for initially. So it was such a great show between these two teams. We had some big moments coming out on both sides, and I think we have a couple of names that really did stand out. So they need to pat themselves on the back because it was a great showing all around. The High Rollers now securing their spot in the playoffs by completing their regular season, going 4-1. No other team except for the Towson Tigerfish can match that. However, it is worth noting that the Ink Raiders are not out of the playoff picture just yet. They're going to need a little bit of help because they first need to beat the Towson Tigerfish. That is the week 2 rematch that we were discussing earlier. And on top of that, they will need the Sporty Bobblehat Gang to beat the Towson Tigerfish, which is certainly a tall order. So they need to get the job done themselves and get a little bit of help from their fellow group members. So it's not out of the picture just yet, but the odds are stacked against the Ink Raiders. But step 1 is put in the work, get the first part of the job done yourself, and after that, fate is out of your hands.
Right, exactly. And that's how it goes with the league play sometimes, with the group. Sometimes you need to rely on your own opponents. You're basically at the will of your own opponent at the end of the day, only if you secure that initial win. So we'll be definitely on the lookout next week for that rescheduled match between Towson Tigerfish and Ink Raiders Bravo. They're not out of the woods just yet.
Nope. So Towson Tigerfish still got a lot on the line here. Their odds are looking better, but work still needs to be done. So it's going to be an exciting finish for sure. But until then, Mizuno, I think that is it for this evening. Let's go ahead and wrap this one up. Go ahead and plug yourself real quick. Where can the people of our chat find you?
You got it, my friend. Folks, everyone, you can find me both on Twitter and Twitch, MIZU_N0. But you're most likely going to find me here on the CCA Splatoon channel. DRF, where can the good folks find yourself?
You can go ahead and find me on Twitter at DRF_Splatoon and on Twitch at TritonDRF. Mizuno stole the words right out of my mouth. Per usual, you can find me right here at the CCA, running all things collegiate Splatoon. Thank you all so much for sticking with us through this insane set. I mean, Ink Raiders keep their streak alive of crazy sets this season. But that will do it for tonight. We have several more matches coming up tomorrow. A couple of high stakes ones, if I remember correctly, as well. Yes, C Sharp Major taking on Goomies for a Division 4 playoff spot, and a U of A Axion Splatters taking on the Grisco Gators down in Division 6. That all starts at 5 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern. Gonna get my time zones correct here. And remember to change back your clocks tonight. If you live in North America, I think. I don't know how time zones work. But at least in the US, everywhere except Arizona and Hawaii. But anyways, Mizuno, sign us off.
You got it, folks. With that being said, keep an eye out for those matches tomorrow. Don't go anywhere for this weekend. Check out those tournament brackets. Otherwise, we will see you all tomorrow for more CCA action.